Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Kate, Neil, good
morning.
morning.
Good morning.
So
Good morning,
nice to
Nicole.
all be together again and to be with all of you. We're going to start off the morning talking about money because, as they say, it makes the world go round or it can bring it to a dramatic halt. It is amazing
Indeed.
how much money does play everything in our lives. Everything seems to revolve around it.
Scary,
we want
isn't
to earn
it?
it, we want to spend it, we want to move it, and yet we don't necessarily control it as
And it
much
can
as
be
we
a great
think.
surprise, Nicole, when somebody all of a sudden takes it out of your bank account and you didn't know anything about it.
Yes, we've had a lot of queries on the programme about that regarding Hacienda. And so I'm very glad that you're going to be addressing the viewers' issues
It's one of the
in
things,
general.
Yeah, it's one of the things that people contact us most about, which is this question: because that can the Spanish tax office, can the Spanish authorities just take money from your bank account when you owe them money? And of
Or they
course,
think you owe them money.
Absolutely. Let's talk a little bit about that and what I mean. This is one of the things that people go on rage on social media about and saying that this can't be done. This is not possible. How can they do this? Well, the truth is, yes, they can. We're in Spain. There's a different law. There's a different regime for when people pay taxes and when people pay fines and things like that. And if you owe the Spanish authorities money, they can take it from your bank account. And then people say, well, how on earth do they know where my bank account is? Well, Spain is a lot more joined up in administrative terms than places like even Britain. I mean, we know that we have the doctor's card has all our prescriptions on, that's very ordered. We have these identity cards were all ordered. And all our bank accounts in Spain, whether we're resident, that's where we live here, or whether we're non-resident, we just own a second property and we have a bank account for administrative and household bills and things. The authorities know about that bank account. And so what happens is, if you have a debt with the authorities, they are allowed by law to go firstly to your bank account. If there's nothing in your bank account, they can go to your stocks and shares and things that you have in Spain. And they go through a whole kind of progression, your salary, if you earn your salary, right through to your property and to your jewellery. Obviously, it's quite hard to get hold of your jewellery. So they'll start with your bank account. Now, we don't want to frighten people this morning, because it doesn't happen to everyone every day. And I think the important thing is, when you see people on social media saying, well, they've taken money from my account, my friend's account, how can this be? This is not possible. Spain are thieves and all this kind of thing. It's because that person, 99 times out of 100, does owe money.
And it can be, from what I understand and what I'm seeing from the people around us, they've not realised they've owed money. And
Correct.
this is another thing, not being up to date, not knowing
Correct.
where
We're
the
gonna talk about
taxes
that.
are coming in from.
Absolutely.
So it's not necessarily that you're just trying to avoid paying taxes or payments. It's sometimes we just don't know.
You're ignorant of it. Well, what generally in the most common examples tends to happen, or what are people taking out your bank account? Well, it's if you owe things like income tax or non-residence tax and things like that, and you've forgotten to pay it, or your accountant hasn't told you. That's quite common. A big thing is the EB, which is a bit like a kind of council tax in Spain. It's a lot less, it's slightly different. But people can often forget that, or the bank account's changed, or something's happened with the bank account. The other thing is, if you're a self-employed person, you pay these monthly quotas to Social Security. If you miss that for a few months, and they're likely to just go into your bank account and take that.
Yeah.
And that happens to a lot of people that perhaps don't have enough income and they don't pay it. And
that's the thing, because
a few months
here
later, it
you
just
have
goes.
to pay the autonomous payment every month, whether you're invoicing or not.
Yeah.
And so, of course,
That's the
especially in
base.
times when business is slack, or even in times of lockdown, people
Yeah.
still had to pay
it's
their
more
income
difficult.
tax.
That's
It's crazy.
right. I
On
mean, I think
money,
during lockdown, these things were suspended.
there were certain
the
things
money.
that were
Yeah.
slightly adapted, but it's a commitment.
Yeah.
So is it normally the accountant that you would advise that to obviously?
Well, if you've got an
speak to
accountant,
about it?
but we'll come into that in a second. And the other thing that comes out of your bank account is traffic fines. And that is what happens to most people. And normally, as you know, that's 100, 200, 300, 400 euros. And that's what most people fall foul of, because they're just not aware that they've had a traffic
No, it
fine.
does
And obviously
happen
there's
a
due
lot.
process, you're informed. As you know, in Spain, if you've
I
ever
think
had a
now
traffic
they
fine...
used to, but I think now it's become. I mean, obviously, please don't quote me on this, but I believe it is our responsibility to check, because I had somebody write to us to say that they used to be informed, they didn't get any information, but if I remember rightly, they would then had this money taken, but they didn't know, and they said to them, yes, you have to look and make sure you don't have any fines.
We don't know this person's circumstances, but
No, I
it's
don't. But I
generally
say
not
again, just
true.
a letter
It's not
or a
true.
letter, an email that we received.
So what are we saying for? Don't panic. It doesn't happen to many people. It's if you haven't paid, you've forgotten to pay your tax, your council tax, your EB, your autonomo, or there's a traffic fine you didn't know about it. Going back to your point, how are you told about it? Well, the law says is that the authorities have to tell you. So again, 99 times out of 100, people should have been told that they owe this money and that they're going to take it from them. And if they go into your bank account, your bank as well has to notify you that it's going to be taken out. And there's usually a period of between 10 and 20 days where the bank holds the money, reserves the money, you can't use it. That's, say it's £200 for a traffic fine, or €200, or €200 for tax. It holds the money, and you've got that period then to go to that authority to pay the fine or clear the debt and clear it up with the authority. So you have to move quite fast. So they should write to you, and your bank should tell you. Now you'll hear again, this kind of on social media, people say they've embargoed my account. That's really scary, isn't it, in an English language? And the Spanish use the word for just reserving this bit of money on your account that they're going to take out. They call it the embargo. So they're not taking all your money, they're taking embargo. And in fact, there are restrictions. If you're earning a salary, they can't take out and leave you less than the minimum wage, which is about £1,000 a month. So even if you owe more, they can only take out a certain amount. Okay?
If it's a company, though, it's completely different than if it's like an individual, because as if in a company, if they believe that there's an outstanding amount, they can actually embargo that amount, and they can actually then send letters to everyone that they have on their register that you invoice and have ever invoiced, to say that a debt is owing, and until that amount is paid, all payments are to be made to the government. Absolutely. And what can happen there, because we also had, it's amazing how many people get problems with this, that because everybody has to pay Hacienda, nobody pays the person at all, so they get no money in.
Yeah, well, Hacienda.
And then Hacienda have to pay you back when they've received too much, when they get round to it.
I mean,
it's a very interesting system in Spain. It's the system. But for us, it's very different from the UK.
It's very different, the rights that they have to sort of do this. I mean, the first thing is don't get yourself into a position in the first place where you owe money, okay? And so in terms of these notifications, they should send you a registered letter to say that you're missing a fine and everything. But what tends to happen with a lot of expats living here, they live in the campo, the countryside, so they only have a PO box address, or the postman doesn't come, or they're away and the notification comes, a yellow slip of paper from Correos, and then they don't collect it from the post office because it's registered, so they have to sign for it, and so that disappears or whatever. So really my advice is don't panic. If it's a traffic fine, at the end of the day, they take it. There's going to be a kind of a 20% increase for not paying on time. That kind of, it's not the end of the world. Clearly, if it's thousands and thousands of euros, it is. Have a friend and neighbour check your post box regularly if you're away. And it's really worth having an accountant, we'll come back to you now, or what we call a gestor in Spain, who are these kind of administrative managers that help explain administrative processes and help you with the bureaucracy. And they perhaps you have a letter sent to them while you're away for a long period of time, or you live in the countryside. The other thing you can do is, and we're not going to go into the detail of that today, many people have heard of it, is the digital certificate. So set up an electronic way that you can go in through your computer and say. Very interestingly,
because at the end of the day, even if you have an accountant or a gestor in Spain, you are liable anyway. So even if they make a mistake, even if it's their mistake, it's your responsibility.
Yeah, and they're not infallible, they can make mistakes.
Exactly, and they get busy. So it's good, as you say, to have your digital certificate that you can go in and check yourself periodically at least to have an idea.
The important thing is not to panic. It's not going to happen to many people. Most people it's going to happen to is they've just got a traffic fine. But there's a very good way.
And the EB, that's a big one.
And the EB, which is the sort of council tax, the small council tax that people pay each year. If you have, you think you might have a traffic fine or you're worried, there is a website, it's called Testra TEU. If you put that in your search engine, Google or whatever, Testra TEU, and it belongs to the DGT, which is the traffic authority in Spain, and you can go in and you can see on your name if there's any traffic fines.
That's good.
And that's very handy to know.
Very
handy.
handy.
You're just worried if you were driving in that motorway a few months ago and you weren't sure because things take a long time to come through, go in and check and you can see if there's anything there, even if you're back home. That's if you've got obviously registered in Spain with your driving license, and keep your driving license up to date, keep the traffic authority up to date, keep the tax office up, keep your address up to date, and things like that.
Yeah, that's a big one as well.
Yeah,
Huge,
yeah.
isn't it?
So don't panic; it can happen, but there are ways to be ready. Then a lot of people say is, well, what I'm going to do with my bank account, I'm going to move it to one of these what they call neobank, these magic banks, which are companies like Wise, it used to be TransferWise, N26. Revolut, which aren't strictly banks. They act a bit like banks, but they're not.
Exactly. Tell us more. I've actually got an N26 account, never used it, don't know what it is, have been contacted and had to fill in information. So, but please, what is it exactly?
Okay, they call these neobanks, and what they are, they've got license to exchange money, to move money around, but they don't offer things like normal banks, like loans, mortgages, and they don't have high street branches. Okay. And a lot of people use these because they allow you to have accounts in different currencies. So, for example, people who are getting paid their pensions in the UK in pounds can have a Wise account. Let's use Wise as an example, but there are lots of other operators where it can be in pounds and they can transfer it. And the exchange rate to euros is generally much better than the normal banks. And it allows them to have a debit card and credit card and move it around as that. So they're kind of like banks. People tend to generally say customer service from them is not as good because they don't exist. They're virtual they're virtual financial organizations. Many people worry that their money is unprotected in these kind of things, like they've got tens of thousands in there or something. It's not, because by law, these kind of neobanks, these intermediaries, have to have a guarantor bank in their home country. Okay, but a lot of people think, well, if I put all my money in one of these sort of Wise accounts, it's not going to be found by the Spanish tax authorities. Well, that's not true. In the case of Wise, all the accounts of Wise in Spain, they're registered to Belgium. Okay, so eventually, if you've got a lot of money in that, there's exchange of information now from the different governments and tax authorities that we read about a lot. Eventually, not as immediately as a Spanish bank, because if you register with a Spanish high street bank, the tax office will know immediately about that bank account. But eventually, in 1 or 2 years' time, if you owe money, the government is going to find that you've got a Wise account that's registered in Belgium. And there's companies like Revolut, for example, that used to be more virtual, but now actually have a base in Spain. So they are now incorporated into the sort of Spanish tax monitoring. So, and some people have been caught out there. They thought, well, I've got a Revolut account, which isn't a bank account. My money's not going to be taken because I owe money, and boom, it comes out and everything. Yeah. The general trend with all these kind of intermediary neobanks is more regulation. So they're becoming more into the thing. But they can be a very good way of saving money on exchange, moving money quickly, and they're a good product. But don't think that somehow this money is hidden. Yeah, there's exchange of information now between all these countries. They call it the CRS system. And eventually the Spanish tax office, if you're a Spanish tax resident, will find out that you've got these bank accounts. And of course, if you're an expat resident, you're a resident in Spain, you have assets overseas over a certain value, you also need each year to tell Hacienda about that. It's the famous Modelo 720. So if you have in bank accounts, stocks and shares or property, 50,000 euros more in any of those, you're meant each year to fill in a declaration for the tax office. So they know you've got these accounts. If you've got less in all of them, you don't have to. If you've got more than 50 in one of those three categories, you have to tell. In fact, the deadline is in a few days at the end of March for this last year. So people are probably a bit late now, they haven't done it. So it pays.
But if you haven't done it, just get on it.
Yeah, just do.
Just get on it quickly.
You don't have to update it each year in the money. You just do it once, unless the money's increased quite a lot. So yes, and really, I think if you've got even slightly complicated affairs, it's a good idea to use a Hesketh, which are generally a lot cheaper than accountants in the UK. We're not really used to them in a lot of other countries, but they can save you a lot of time and effort.
They're like paperwork administrators, aren't
Absolutely,
they? They're very good for getting driving license, renewing things, and also for keeping an eye on things.
They can see a way through bureaucracy, because not even the people that live in Spain all the time get it right all the time, and we've all got stories of things we've got wrong over the years. It's a strange thing to do, but if you can get a Hesketh, it can save you a lot of hassle, and get one that's recommended, that your friends have used.
I think this is very important also, because particularly if you live in an area of changing affluence, like the touristic areas, in all aspects, always get like recommendations, because a lot of people in the tourist areas come and go.
Yeah.
But yes, I normally speak to 3 or 4 professionals, and then if they all say the same thing, then you kind of know you're on the right track, and then it's the one you like the best, the one you gel with most.
Yeah, and also, and particularly because a lot of people, all of us, don't know the language here. Your gestor will do the work for you, but stay awake yourself.
Exactly.
You know,
That's
stay
it,
awake.
isn't
Check
it?
You
your
are
bank account
responsible.
now and again. Oh, there's a notification saying that they're holding 200 euros for a traffic fine 3 years ago. I didn't know about that. Okay, it's happened. No big deal. Deal with it.
Yeah.
I think it's, as you say, it's kind of nice, like that you can kind of put your head on the pillow at night by having that extra kind of, I guess, discussion
Absolutely.
with them, isn't it?
Absolutely,
No,
absolutely.
put you at
And
ease.
good gestors are professionally insured. They have this insurance. So if there's a major disaster and it's their fault, then they are
Yeah,
covered.
an accountant should also.
Yeah,
Neil,
accountant should.
fascinating.
Yeah.
Thank you
Thank
so
you.
much.
Thank you so
Interesting.
much.
We will all sleep better tonight.
Always.